How would you like to have all this 5 minutes from your doorstep? Well, in this video, we're talking about living in Northwest Portland, so stay tuned to learn more. What's up, everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Northwest Portland, Oregon today. And if this is your first time to the channel, living in Oregon, and you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We've helped so many people relocate to Oregon and move to the Portland metro area. And as real estate professionals, we love to help with that process. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to the Portland area. All right, so Northwest Portland is one of the 4 primary quadrants in Portland proper. You also have North Portland and South Portland, but Northwest Portland is securely kind of downtown and up in the hills, and nowhere else, no other quadrant in particular in the Portland area has such a sharp contrast in terms of what you can get. You start down closer to the water. In Chinatown and Old Town, you have kind of some bars and clubs and some nightlife, but you also have things like soup kitchens, a lot of tents. You have the train station, and in around that area, it can get pretty rough. There's not a ton of residential in that area. You do have some Section 8 housing. There are some apartments and things like that, but you go, 12, 13 blocks to the west, you get up into the Pearl District, and the Pearl District is like, quintessential urban living. It's all high-rise condos. You have, fancy restaurants, nice cool cocktail bars, breweries, coffee shops. You have some really high-end retail. There are some remnants of kind of what the Pearl District used to be before a lot of the development. This was an area that was, purely industrial. So it's a ton of like loading docks and industrial type buildings that have been converted into a lot of this retail and shopping and restaurants and things like that. There's a ton of art galleries. So in the Pearl District, there's a big kind of arts culture there. They do the first Friday in the warmer months. So, from about May through September, the first Friday of the month, they shut down some streets and they have like street vendors, food, music. It's a really cool time. So the Pearl District, definitely a really popular place to go visit, go hang out, even if you don't live downtown or in Portland proper. I think if a lot of people are going downtown Portland, they're going to end up in the Pearl District, checking out Powell's Books, doing a little shopping. There's some like rooftop patios, bars, restaurants, things like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff to see there. And a lot of people enjoy living there because of that urban environment that it offers. You go a little bit further west, and once you get to about 16th, 17th, 18th, but in particular up to Northwest 21st and Northwest 23rd, this is what by and large is referred to as the Northwest District. It goes by many names. If you look above the street signs, it says the Alphabet District, and that's because every street there is in alphabetical order, so it makes it easier to memorize. This also goes by Nob Hill. So some people refer to this area as Nob Hill, and a lot of people just say 23rd. Hey, I'm going up to 23rd. And this is a really cool area too that does have some condos, some apartments, but a lot of these buildings, in fact, most of these buildings, really up until the last 5 or 10 years, there has been some newer development. You have 80, 100-year-old, 120-year-old buildings, and you have these really old, cool condos with a lot of charm. They're really small, 500, 600, 700 square feet in most cases. But I think what really is the biggest highlight of this area, aside from kind of the shopping and restaurant district, is these old homes that you get. This was probably, if not the oldest, one of the oldest, if not the oldest neighborhoods in Portland. So you're just set kind of right on the edge of downtown, of kind of that more urban downtown area. This is still an urban neighborhood by and large, but all of these homes in this area are enormous, and you have these old Victorian architecture, and these old styles craftsman homes that are big and beautiful, and for the most part very well maintained and very well cared for. So this is a super desirable area. Definitely is a little bit more expensive, not only because the price per square foot is relatively high here, but the homes are big, so you're getting 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 square foot homes that were, kind of home to Portland's original doctors and lawyers and kind of aristocratic population, in the area. So Northwest 23rd, the Northwest District, really cool. Just a little bit to the north, but kind of parallel or right next to this Northwest District is a completely new development. It's a little bit more of an extension of the Pearl District in that this was kind of a industrial area with warehouses and manufacturing and just kind of an old industrial area, but it's been converted into what's now called Slabtown. And this is probably the newest, kind of most newly minted neighborhood or area in all of Portland. It is primarily, 5, 6, 7-story apartment buildings and condos. It is anchored by, right in the middle of the area, there's a New Seasons, so you have your grocery shopping there, but there are some really great restaurants, some really cool cocktail bars and lounges. Not a ton of retail shopping right there, but again, you're right next to 23rd, you're right next to the Pearl District, so you do have a lot of shopping in the immediate area. But you walk around this area, it feels very fresh, very new. I think it definitely appeals to a little bit of a younger crowd. A lot of the living in this area is apartments. And so if you're looking to buy, you might be able to find a condo, you might be able to find some one-off houses, that didn't get torn down or that still, or that were existing there, for a long time. But Slabtown is a really cool area as well. Now, once you get past 23rd, really past Northwest 25th, you start to climb elevation pretty quickly and you get up into what are the West Hills. And so the West Hills span, from the north in Forest Park, all the way down through Northwest Portland and then down through Southwest Portland until you get to like Dunthorpe and Lake Oswego area. So it kind of runs parallel with the river. These are what are referred to as the Tualatin Mountains. Tualatin is a term that you'll hear a lot, a word that you'll hear a lot. You have the Tualatin Mountains, which most people call the West Hills. You have the Tualatin Valley, which is primarily the areas of Beaverton and then west of there into Hillsborough. You have the Tualatin River, where that runs through the Tualatin Valley, and then the Tualatin River goes down into Tualatin, and then borders part of Tigard, and then it snakes over east into like Westland, Wilsonville area, and then you have Tualatin, the city, the suburb of Portland, just to the south of town, about 8 miles south, 10 miles south of downtown Portland on I-5. You have Tualatin. So I digress. Tualatin is something that you'll hear a lot, but back to Northwest Portland. So once you start getting up into the West Hills, just set up above this Northwest District and Northwest 23rd, you have like Kings Heights, you have some really big old kind of luxury style living, similar to some degree with what you can get around 23rd, but much larger homes, much more kind of grand and luxurious homes, and definitely of an era. So really cool architecture. Every house is, different. So it's not like this development where kind of you get nowadays, or even in the last 30 or 40 years, where every house is kind of similar, similar color, similar style, similar lot size. You get a lot of diversity in this kind of older part of Northwest once you start getting up into the West Hills. That is probably some of the most sought after real estate in the area. I think there's definitely a pride of ownership here. These are some of the oldest, biggest, most luxurious homes in all of Portland and really in all of the Portland metro area. So, this area is very cool. But then you get up the hill further, you go up either Cornell or you go up Burnside to Skyline. And these are two streets that run kind of along the crest or along the spine or the top of the West Hills. And, down the hill on either side, you have some older developments. You do have some older homes. You do have older homes that have like half an acre or an acre. But I would say that these homes, these older homes, way up in the hills that have a lot of land. A lot of the land is relatively unusable because there's so much elevation here. It's heavily wooded, so you're really on a pretty steep incline or slope, and there's a lot of trees around, so you have some privacy, you have some beautiful views of nature and the trees around you, even a little bit of wildlife, but it's not like you have a half an acre or an acre of usable land. So I think that is worth noting, because a lot of people do get attracted to this area because the lot sizes are larger. But I think it's important to know that your home site, where your house sits up in the West Hills, you might only have 6, 7, 8,000 square feet of usable area, which is plenty for sure. And again, you still get some relative privacy, but you keep going a little bit, up into the hills, you make your way kind of a little bit further north and a little bit further west, and there are a ton of developments up there that are some of the most sought after areas in Portland for a number of reasons. I mean, these are nice, big, luxury style homes. You do get quite a range in terms of size and style of home, to some degree, price as well. But really up in this area in particular, I think that all of this area is really kind of anchored by Forest Heights. This is the biggest development up there in kind of, still in the city limits, still in the city boundaries, still considered Northwest Portland, but it starts to get up and get a little bit more suburban. And if you just drop down the hill, you're going to drop into either like Cedar Mill, Bethany, and then eventually down into Beaverton. But you get over into Washington County from Multnomah County, which is where Portland is. So basically, if you're up in these developments up in the West Hills, in particular, again, Forest Heights and similar developments like it, as you drop down to the west, and then even back south a little bit, you get into Washington County, into Beaverton schools. Taxes are a little bit favorable, so some people like to be up in the West Hills but want to make sure they're on that Washington County side. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Northwest Portland. And Forest Heights, again, is one of the more sought after, one of the most desirable areas to live for a number of reasons. It's not just that the homes are big and beautiful and definitely on the newer side, but there's a ton of great amenities. There's a little village kind of right in the middle where you have a coffee shop, a couple restaurants, some grocery shopping, things like that, but there's walking trails everywhere. So, you get this beautiful landscape, you get these hills, these, you're basically living in a forest, and you get these walking trails and sidewalks and walking paths, tennis courts, a lot of great amenities that I think a lot of people are seeking when they're looking for kind of the perfect neighborhood that they're envisioning when moving to Portland. So going back to my original point, I think Northwest Portland has the sharpest contrast in terms of these different areas that we've talked about, because you have, homeless issues and Section 8 housing, and a little bit of crime and relative poverty, down in like Chinatown, Old Town. Up into the Pearl District, you have high-rise condos, luxurious condos that are $500, $550 a square foot, and HOAs that are $600, $800, $1,000 a month. Up into Northwest, which is this cool old kind of vintage neighborhood with 100-plus-year-old homes. A lot of great kind of old staples of Portland as far as some of these restaurants and coffee shops and retail shops and things like that. Definitely a busy and popular area, but definitely a more wealthy area for sure by and large. You get up further into the hills, you get some of the most iconic real estate in the city of Portland, some of the most sought after real estate. And, again, this is where kind of the original big dogs lived in Portland, that kind of aristocratic, class. And so, it's still reflected, it's still been well preserved in that area. And I think that's attractive to some people. Then you get up into Forest Heights and some of these other developments up off Skyline and up Cornell, and you get more your kind of run-of-the-mill suburban type living, but the landscape is so unique, regardless of where you're coming from. I don't know, I would be hard-pressed to say there's many places like this in the country where you get kind of your standard, highly sought-after suburban style living with big, 3,000 to 4,500 square foot homes that are well maintained. You get all the amenities with the walking trails and walking paths. Again, all within 10 minutes really of downtown Portland. So if we talk about home prices and home values in these areas, there are some areas here that we haven't seen appreciate quite as much as the rest of the real estate market in the Portland metro area over the last couple of years. And I think there's a few reasons why. I mean, Chinatown, Old Town, that's pretty easy to understand. I mean, there's been a lot of unrest downtown. Homelessness is an issue, you know, some crime and things like that. And I think that really does bleed into or extend into the Pearl District as well. I think the Pearl District is one of those areas in Portland where we've probably seen more people leave than move in the past couple of years. That's obviously going to have an impact on the housing market and home prices. But even in the Pearl District, I mean, if you're going to spend $500,000 or $600,000, you're probably getting a studio, maybe a 1-bedroom, maybe a 2-bedroom condo, depending on the building and, you know, the age and the amenities and things like that. But you can get some like really nice 3-bedroom condos, 4-bedroom condos, you know, 1,500, 2,000 square feet, especially, you know, that are higher up in the building. You get big sweeping views of the skyline in downtown Portland and of the east side looking over to Mount Hood. I mean, it's obviously gorgeous. It's unbeatable as far as the views you can get, but you know, you're probably spending $900,000 to $1 million still for, you know, that type of condo. But that's a very specific type of area with a very specific type of lifestyle and living that I think is still very highly sought after. And it's a popular area, again, just to go hang out, and you know, people spend a lot of time there, so higher energy and things like that. Up into this Northwest District around Northwest 23rd and Northwest 21st, you're probably starting around 800,000 and you're probably pushing 1.2. And you can spend a lot more, I'm sure, you know, for some of these larger homes in particular that have been restored or rehabbed. You know, those are going to definitely carry a premium. But just for your typical, you know, old kind of cool classic historic home there that maybe has had some updates over the years, that's been well maintained, but you know, by no means has been like remodeled necessarily, like top to bottom, yeah, you're probably still around 800 to at least $1 million. And then you get up into this Forest Heights area again, where you probably have the largest housing stock. There's some developments that are very similar to Forest Heights too, so I'm just using that as the primary example. But really in this area, you're starting about 1 million, 1.1, probably 125 to 175 is the typical range, with about 1.5, maybe 1.4 being the average or the median in this area. You do have some like townhouses and condos, and there are some neighborhoods in Northwest, up in the West Hills, around this Forest Heights area that, you know, that are a little more modest. You know, your ranch style houses, you know, your 2,000, 2,500 square foot homes, and those are still going to be, you know, at least 750 up to 800,000 probably, because really in this area, as much as anywhere in the Portland metro area, you're buying the area, you know, you're buying the area that you live because it is so sought after. So you get a ton of variety in Northwest. Northwest is one of the coolest, most hippest places to be, especially when we're talking about the Pearl District and Northwest 23rd and this area. So this is an area that a lot of people want to spend time in, and a lot of people who want to live, even up in, you know, Forest Heights, further up in Northwest, you know, they want to have that proximity to downtown and proximity to the city because, you know, they enjoy a lot of the things, the events, the shopping, and in particular, probably, I would say number one on most people's lists, the restaurants. You know, Portland's restaurant scene is as good as anywhere in the country, at least on a per capita basis. And so a lot of people still like to get out, you know, go get a drink, go get great lunch, great dinner. And if you're living up in the hills in Northwest, you're going to have access to that, dropping down into downtown, or even being close enough to get over to the east side, southeast, northeast, where a lot of these great restaurants are as well, and great little neighborhoods too to hang out. So, you know, I think you get a very distinct culture. You get a very distinct kind of Portland experience if you're living in Southeast Portland or in Northeast Portland. You know, it's hard to maybe put my finger on exactly what that is. I would say like Portlandia is probably the best reference, unfortunately, for a lot of what you might be able to get like on the east side in particular. And in Northwest Portland, you lack a lot of the elements that you get in Southeast and Northeast, In Northwest, it's going to be probably a higher quantity of like a professional class. Dare I say it's a little more of kind of a yuppie feel, you know, if that's the right term or the wrong term, I'm not sure, but hopefully you understand what I'm getting at there. There's a spirit of Portland, a certain spirit that Portland has, or, you know, dare I say, certain stereotypes that Portland has that in Northwest Portland, again, whether you're living in the Pearl, in the city, or way up in the hills in a more suburban area, you're not necessarily going to get. So, you know, I think Portland does have a ton to offer culturally, and Northwest Portland, be it diverse and having, you know, this contrast of different areas that you can live in, all of it is very unique relative to what you would get, again, on the east side, northeast, southeast, or in Southwest Portland. And all of Northwest Portland is going to be Portland Public Schools. So pretty much everything in Northwest Portland is going to feed into Lincoln High School, which is really the only public high school that's actually in the city, and it's being totally rebuilt right now. So it's right next to the MAC Club, the Multnomah Athletic Club, which is an athletic club that, you know, I think from a lot of people's perspective, and, you know, from my experience growing up, kind of from what you hear, is a little bit more exclusive. It's a little bit more of a social club too, and a lot of people that live in this Northwest area do join the MAC Club or are members of the MAC Club. But Lincoln High School is right across the street, and they're actually building a completely new structure. And I think the academics there are pretty good too. I think Lincoln is actually a school that a lot of parents do want their kids ultimately to feed into. So for a public school, it's rated amongst the highest in the state academically. So definitely something worth noting there. You also have Forest Park, which is where I am today. One of the biggest inner city parks in the country. I think it's like 3 times the size of Central Park in New York City. So hiking trails just as far as the eye can see. All right, sure enough, my camera died, so I'm back here in studio at the office now. But we were talking about Forest Park, and bottom line, Forest Park is really unrivaled when you look at like inner city parks with the level of trails, hiking, you know, the miles and miles of hiking that is available right there really in the city. And it's in, you know, really makes up probably, you know, at least half of all of Northwest Portland is all this huge public city park. So Forest Park, I know, is something that a lot of people really enjoy when they live in Northwest Portland, and having that really close proximity. There's a lot of areas you could live around Northwest, whether you are closer into the city in the Pearl, or in the Northwest District, or up in the hills where, you know, 5, 6, 7 minute drive, you're right there. Maybe even a 10-15 minute walk, you can access some trailheads. So Forest Park is great. And I think overall, for what you get in Northwest Portland, you know, for the right person, depending on what they're looking for, you get so much, again, diversity in landscape, diversity in kind of lifestyle and aesthetic, from suburban to kind of the most urban setting you can think of. I myself, you know, I've spent 4 years of my life living in Northwest Portland, absolutely love it, would definitely consider going back one day to live. So if Northwest Portland is an area that sounds interesting to you, if you want to learn more about this area, make sure to give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video. We can talk about Northwest Portland, different areas of Portland that might suit you and your lifestyle, and put together a game plan for your home search. And if this video is helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. If you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. As always, we appreciate you watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.